should church hurt, or what they call church hurt, be enough to drive somebody away from church?
How do we deal with people who are feeling like they've been abused?
Right.
Okay, for me, I'm taking it deeper because of the stories that I have kind of journeyed with, other people's stories and stuff.
Right.
I think sometimes we feel like if it doesn't apply to us, so if we won't leave, we feel like other people don't have the right to leave.
Okay. Yeah. I know people who have left churches, and because they left churches, they died. Now the question is, did they leave because they left the churches? Maybe the word that they were hearing in those churches was keeping them alive. They were practicing. Maybe their faith was being built in this church, and then they left because of one offense or the other. In doing so, they died. I know personally know people who died after leaving. So the point is,
think about it. Were you growing spiritually? Are there ways in which you can reach out to the pastor or someone to express your hurt? And are there ways of fixing it?
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So where I was trying to get to was that obviously people are people, and people will be people everywhere you go. Regardless how spiritual they are, they have to deal with their issues.
Yeah.
And that understanding then gives you a bit of a leeway to be able to accommodate people a bit better. I think what we do, because I've also left church before. I left church for a year, but God did not allow me to stay home.
Like, you better come back.
He pushed me to a different church until I learned enough sense to come back. You understand what I'm saying?
That's important. Yeah.
So for me, one thing that I realized was sometimes we attach church people to church. So when we have an issue with church people, we have an issue with church.
Isn't the church made up of the people?
Church is made up of people, but church as an institute or church
as the body of Christ.
Do you understand? It's not necessarily that person does not justify what the church is. Yeah, the church is perfect in itself. The person in the church does not necessarily define
the church.
Do you get what I'm saying? And it's important that we understand the difference, because subliminally, it's not even intentionally. Subliminally, we just assume that, oh, okay, this person is from church, or this person is a leader in church. So when I have an issue or this person offends me, it's a church. And then that also now, some people go a bit further, where the institution of the church now defines their Christianity. So once they now have church hurts, issue with people in the church, when now becomes issue with the church, it now becomes an issue with God. And some people end up, not everyone, some people, because it happens. And then some people, then their relationship with God now begins to drift apart, because that separation has not taken place in their minds.
Right.
And I think that's something that we need to be able to do. You understand? To separate, if not, one offense from somebody who's having his issues now affects you, and then before
your relationship with God.
Do you understand? Your relationship with God is now in shambles. Do you understand? And then one day you stand before God and you cannot say, because of Jonathan or because of Aisha, that I
decided to bounce.
Do you understand what I'm saying? That will not be an acceptable answer.
But I think it's people actually owning up and saying that they are immature Christians.
Okay.
Because if your mum offends you, I mean, you just take it like that because it's your mum. But I'm saying it's about maturity, though. It's about maturity and levels of maturity. Everything that I'm saying, I still stand by everything that I say right now. But this is in addition to say we have to also have a responsibility of how we respond. You know, things happen to us, but how do we respond to the things that are happening to us? Right. And actually identifying that they are affecting us and trying to address them quickly. If it's my inability to manage the person's conversations with me, then I need to find a solution for myself, how I manage that.
Sometimes you can love a person from afar.
Yeah, you really might have to, and love them dearly by the love of God
from a distance.
And you know, you have to. And sometimes I know a friend who goes to a church, and apparently before the pastor will preach. He said, go and say, if someone has offended you, please go now and tell them that you offended me, but it's okay, I forgive you. And apparently, true to the word, people will go around and look. I said, sister, you offended me 2 days ago. It really hurt me, but it's okay, I forgive you.
I don't even know that they offended you.
Yeah, but I think
But
it's
I
done
like the process of addressing that. That's actually
right then in that moment. And I
Yeah.
thought, as people really going about doing this, it's just like, yeah, I think, okay, maybe the church, imagine if you're like a really big mega church, that's going to be difficult. But somehow, I'm just using that as an example to say, sometimes you just need to have a little conversation about the hurt and move on.
Yeah.
And that shows maturity. It's like, first when you're little, your mum upset you, you can't say nothing. And then you pray about it and you find a way you go and tell your dad, or whatever. And now you think you're a bit big. So if your mum upsets you, you're like, your mum upsets you.
Big girl.
You're like, mum, I think this thing, so you find a respectful way of addressing it. So it's about how do we respond to those issues and how do we feel like we're positioned to address it? Because sometimes it's our inability to manage these things. So somebody looked at you the wrong way. They will probably look in their own place. They have their own headache. Or how has that offended you? But I know loads of girls, young, unfortunately, very immature Christians, have hurt from relational issues.
Relationships.
Yes.
Can we talk about that?
I mean, it's your show.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, that causes a lot of offense. And I gave the example earlier about the worship leader being right there. And, you're walking into church. You probably came late because you have these hurts and you dragged yourself out of bed. And then you get there
and the person you're looking
there
at.
he is or there she is singing their heart out for God. And you're thinking,
Crying.
oh.
After all this person has done to
It wasn't not you last night that was texting me this message. Yeah, and I think those, because there's a real...
No, but these are real issues.
There are real issues. There's a girl who was so offended and she did the right thing, She then saw a mature Christian who was actually in a church which has an organization that they speak to people who are hurt. So there's like a structure. She went and spoke to them. They called a young man. They said, young man, we've had reports about this incident. The young man twisted the whole story. We don't know which version is which. So they called the young lady back and said, young lady, we think there's something, we need to cancel you because your brain is not functioning, analyzing the issue properly. So this girl was very hurt. And not only that, the statement is actually true because he has maneuvered about 5-6 people in the same way in the church. And now some of them have left. Some of them are still holding on tight, believing in God.
Hoping that he will maneuver it back to her.
Some have pretended they're not even part of his line of offences just to overcome, So I think that is an issue.
That needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I left church once because a relationship broke down.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I can't.
So then, looking at that situation, for example, there are possibly ways which that situation could have gone in a better direction. For example, we spoke about accountability on a different episode.
Right.
If, for example, the right people were told about this relationship, it would have, I'm not saying that people would not have done what they would do, because the people do what they want to do, but it would have made it a bit more difficult for this person
to
just do that thing, especially without any consequences.
Yeah, but wait first. If this person is doing all of this in the church, what accountability would change that person doing that?
Yeah.
Because, for example...
Because how many people did he do that to? 5 people?
Because...
And that's the vocal
I
one.
feel like what he needs is
But
more a serious hand as opposed to like just being like, oh, okay.
But accountability would have told you that this person has done the same thing or promised the same thing to several
5 other girls.
people.
Yeah.
And then it would have helped you to be able to know that this person is not somebody that you want to spend your time investing.
Oh,
energy.
but we are Christians. We forgive. We believe people change.
No,
We are... No, I'm just throwing that.
People have patterns.
You know what? No, that's also...
I get your point.
Yeah,
People,
also
I mean, the me that I was 10 years
also
ago
valid.
is a
Yeah,
different me. Come on, you can't brush me with the same stroke.
Yeah, he cannot be playing with one girl today and then 2 months later be playing with you and then we think he has changed. That doesn't make any sense.
Because in that time frame, he never officially... there's these worldly issues that are creeping into the church, and I keep using the word immature because we are not in Christ. We just attend church sometimes, and most of this... most of the hurt sometimes that are relational, like people from one person, is because of our maturity is a bit lacking.
Yes.
But if there are actual fundamental church organizational structures or culture that is causing you offense, then that's separate.
Yeah, but also some of these things can be avoided not every situation is the same.
Yeah, of
Depending on
course.
some, for example, this whole relationship stuff. If I was your pastor, because the pastor's supposed to know his brethren, obviously in a big church it may be difficult, but they also have the cell system, fellowships, all these things. So the fellowship leaders will now be able to know the brethren well enough to be able to say that I know about his situations. I know this guy is a bit unstable. So if a sister was to come to the leadership, the leaders, and to say, oh, this brother is talking to say, oh, really? Oh, him? Oh, really? Okay. And what happened? Okay. So I can say, okay, I may not say no. I may not even like bait him up and say, yeah, he's this kind of person. I may say, hold on. Or I may just advise you that this is not the best situation for you. You understand? So all those things can happen. If peradventure you go and then find your own trouble against advice.
Which,
Do you understand?
Because
That's all
most people
different
don't
situations.
seek
Most people
advice.
will do.
Most people
You understand?
just
seek advice later.
after. So
After
this
the
the
crime.
story that I
Yeah.
narrated was basically she just, after like a year, the relationship broke down a year.
Right.
And then after a year of it breaking down, that's when she thought she was still having issues about it. So from the start of the relationship, all of whatever ship that they were involved in,
Whatever it is they were doing.
Situationship.
whatever ship that they were both sitting in,
Relationship, situation.
she didn't consult. Apparently they had to date in secrecy because, you know, this whole...
Because,
You
you
know,
know, we don't want
that's-
anything. We don't
that's-
want everyone in our
that's-
business. That's usually
Yeah.
the line.
You see,
But, you know, you mature through that. I'm sure you do. And I think
Yeah.
that's most important about knowing Christ. And like you said, about being in Christ. And then, you know, maturing through your relationship with Christ. And understanding, I mean, I said I would love church once. I've actually left church 3 times. The second time was because I felt like I wasn't growing.
okay.
I had a lot of responsibilities.
Okay.
Go here, do this,
But
bring
no
this,
receiving.
usher this, go and do welcoming, go and do this.
Well, you were not hearing it.
I was a young girl. Most of my colleagues are doing boyfriend and clubs. I'm not doing any of that. I felt like there was something missing.
Right. Okay.
So I
That also
actually,
comes down to maturity.
yeah, but because I thought like I didn't think I was being fed. So I only asked God, please let me find somewhere to go so that I can just re-energize myself. Like let me go to a boot camp and then let me come back.
Right.
And I think that's being honest about your level of maturity, so you can take the right steps as well. I think. I mean, the third time I just left because I didn't know if my ministry was really attached to the church. But then God,
That was
I then seeking God, and then He said,
structural
And then
things
so
that-
structural
Yeah,
adjustments.
but you know, why am I sharing all these examples? Not because I feel like they're like army badges for me to be showing them off.
Yeah.
Admiral.
No, I'm not colonel.
Experience with the church hurt.
No. It's because I think to bring it home about maturity, that at every stage I grew.
Right.
I understood better. Why am I sitting here saying all of this and I can still say I'm a minister of the same church? Because, growth has really brought you somewhere. And I feel like it's important to analyze that and remind people that, you know, you have to kind of endure some of these things. And at every point I was praying and I was asking God, you know, I need to know what I'm supposed to do. And for me personally, I can say that all the organizational issues, whatever was upsetting, I receive a word from God myself, not through anybody, to say your ministry is attached to this, like your assignment is attached to this ministry. So if it's messy, if I buy a new house and it's dirty, that's my house.
Right.
I'm gonna have to get a
Clean it up,
broom
yeah.
and sweep. I'm
Clean
gonna have
it
to
up.
get
Sort out
paint.
the issue,
I'm gonna have to buy new chairs and sofas. That is my mission, my house, my job. Anyway, I think I was taking it a bit
No,
too.
like
No, for real.
with like in regards to my perspective, I feel, you know, when you were saying how, you know, you have to kind of separate yourself, I get it to a certain extent,
Right.
but a big part of your Christian walk is going to church. It's being
course.
in the community of believers. The
Of
church
course.
is being, and so like with me, and I'm sure you guys, you're all serving and you're like really deep into this thing. Like me, I'm really deep into it. Like, you know, I really, you know, I'm really deep into, you know, the ministry and like working in ministry and serving in church and like having leaders and serving under a pastor, you know, all of that. So kind of church is the only thing I know. Challenge is like the one thing that, you know, and that's like the same story of other people. Like church is like is like their safe haven, is their home, you know? Like, you know, I say church is home, is the house of God, is home to those people. So when someone hurts them or something happens, the psychological consequences is awful. Like me, like I've gone through situations, I had to get counselling for them. And I'm thinking, in my head, I'm like, why am I going to counselling because of a situation that happened in a place where I should be at joy? Do you know what I mean? Situation like, you know how the whole relationship, that thing happened to me. Like I got involved with a guy, you know, kept it secret. You know, my youth leader found out. And, because I told him. Because I told him, and in thinking I was going to trust my youth leader, he went ahead and told the whole pastoral team. And my pastor, I was like, firstly, why did so many people have to know? It could have been something so silent. It could, like, you know, and next thing you know, like, I had to see my
everyone
pastor
is
in his
calling
office.
you.
Everyone's calling. All the pastoral assistants wanted to talk to me one by one. I was like, and I'm thinking, like, 15-year-old me is trying to hack this. Like, do you know what I mean? And I had to go through like series of counselling. And even to this day, like, it affects me in terms of like trusting to open up on my issues with people. And like you said, if it wasn't for my growth and maturity and learning to like build a relationship with God, I could have just been like, do you know what, I'm done. And then even like simple things like leaders, like people that leaders talking down on me, and you know, they pull the whole, oh, you have to be humble. But there's a difference in being humble and then being a doormat and letting people walk all over you.
100%.
And I think that's something that the church needs to work on.
100%.
That's
Like,
a whole other subject. Because we cannot address that.
you can tell, like, I'm about to be like,
But then there's little things like that. Like, there's some things that you learn. You should learn from a young age, like learning how to
From
talk
your
to
situation, it
people.
seems like it's even possible that the leader thought he was trying to protect you.
Yeah, no,
Do you understand
I get
what I'm
it. Like, we're
saying?
thinking back,
of course,
Your
being 15
perspective,
and all that.
you see it as betrayal.
Yeah, at the time,
Whereas
I was like,
he may have been trying to. So, like you said, come down to the maturity. I think when we find ourselves in the place that God led us to, or that God has taken us to, whether we realize that He was leading us, or we strayed and then we ended, I don't know, we got there and we believe that God brought me to this place.
right.
When things happen, the first thing that we need to remember is, why am I here? I'm here because of God, not because of man. You know, if we all began to talk about experiences that we've had in church, I'm
No
sure
one would be in church.
we can write books.
but that's not a good thing.
We
though.
can write books. No. So I think obviously churches as organizations can have things in place. Pastors, you know, and leaders in church can be attentive. Do you understand? Be more attentive, or be attentive. Maybe they are already. Do you understand? Sometimes you don't understand why they did not react the way that you expected them to react. Maybe that was not the best action to take at that time. Do you get it? So there are so many aspects to it. And we may not always know these things because we may not be told exactly what's going on at that time. And maybe that's the best thing at that time. Do you know what I'm saying? But maybe, like you said, structures can be put in place that certain things can be addressed to a satisfactory level and whatnot. And, you know, we can work on it. Some of us are ministers and some of us, you understand, will be ministers. So we can work on that. But we need to remember ourselves that we are there for God, first and foremost, and that this is God's will for our lives right now. And perhaps stepping out of a situation that God has put you in will be stepping out of God's will. And you have to balance the whole thing. Is it worth it?
But then it goes back to the issue of, like, for example, if I was to move to another church, the one reason, like, the central part of it, you know, is I want to serve God, but this thing is holding me back. And it feels like if I need to truly separate myself from this thing, I have to leave for me to serve God fully and wholly.
You see, I would not say leave. But with that being said, given the situation, not all two situations are the same. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And there are some extreme situations where, for example, somebody may be going crazy because of a situation that took place in church. And they may not have enough maturity to be able to stay in that environment and still function. So in that case, it may be, do you understand what I'm saying? That, like she said, taking time to, but then again, taking time to, you have to realize that the devil, that's how he functions.
But
It's
what's
like,
the church's position in that though? Sorry. But if somebody has left your church, right?
well, I mean, we address. See, if we start telling the church what they should do now, that's a whole different episode.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
That's fine. Yeah.
That's a
You
whole
can have
different-
suggestions, though.
No,
It's
we can,
important
but
for people to keep
it's
connecting.
Yes.
Even if somebody has left, they're just not, your mission isn't just the building that you
course.
congregate in.
Of
But
course.
anybody
It's a
who's had
people.
any relation, anybody who has communion with
The
you,
pastor
you
is a
can
shepherd,
always
yes.
continue to
Reach
shepherd
out to
them.
them
Yeah.
and try
The
to.
Because
pastor
wherever
is a
they
shepherd,
are,
and there's no shepherd without
what about if
the
they
sheep.
need last officers'
So-
prayers for when they're dying?
No, but that's the thing. So I choose to believe that churches do it,
Yeah.
right?
Amen.
Because
Do
when
what
I-
exactly? Maybe
when
let's spell it out.
when I've been a leader in certain rights, I did it. You understand? Because that was the right thing
Yeah.
to do. If a member is having issues or whatnot, you follow up on them. You help them come out of it because you're fighting for the person. So at the end of the day, do you understand? I had opportunity to lead a church before, and there are people that had such issues and whatnot, and I didn't give up on them. Even to today, that I'm not leading them, I still have not given up on them. You
Right.
understand? So if we speak for the churches, it's
Yeah.
a broad
It's an
thing, but we can
individual.
speak for ourselves and say that as people, if we find ourselves in this situation, these are the things to consider. And these are the actions that we can take, but we must think carefully about these actions because what does it mean? Because at the end of the day, you're not there for man. You're not there for the pastor. The pastor is there for you, if anything. You understand? So if you are feeling this way, what will you do?
Yeah.
Me personally, I decided I would do what's right in the sight of God. Regardless of the situation, regardless of whatever. I'll do what's right in the sight of God. And God is the one that moves things around. Do you understand? There may be a time where you look back and say, if I had left, that's what I'm saying. I could have probably been dead by now. So you need to take all these things into consideration, but we have definitely gone over time. So we shall draw the line here and say thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
This interesting conversation, sensitive and all. So thank you for being brave enough to share your experiences, and thank you for watching. And we hope that you have learned something from this. Think about why you are where you are before you make any decision.
Amen.
Okay. So thank you, and then until next time.
See ya.